guys, it's Sarah here. In this video, I'm going to be going over IV fluids. IV fluids are a concept that many people get confused about, and they're used every single day. Almost all patients that come into the hospital are given some sort of fluid. This is why we have to understand it. So let's get started. Before I go into the actual fluid, I'm just going to give a little bit of a beginning introduction. Water likes to remain balanced. If inside the cell there's a lot of water and outside the cell there's not as much, guess where it's going to go? It's going to go from inside to outside to balance itself out. And vice versa. If outside the cell there's more water than inside the cell, the water is going to go from outside the cell to inside the cell. This is known as osmosis. Just the introduction, just to show you that water likes to be balanced, and if it has more water one place, it's going to go to less water, go to more water. Now we just said the introduction, let's go into the fluids. Before I start the fluids, just remember that we're talking about three different stuff. You have the blood vessel, intravascular, you have the cell, intracellular, and you have outside the cell, extracellular. So fluid, when you give a person fluid, it's going into the intravascular. You push it through IV, it goes right into the blood. They remain there, or it could go out into the cell or go out into extravascular. So there are two different types of fluids. There are the crystalloids and the colloids. Crystalloids have smaller molecules, while colloids have larger molecules. So the smaller molecules are going to be able to go out of the intravascular much quicker than the larger molecules, which are the colloids. So if you want something to stay in the intravascular, you're going to use the colloids because they're going to stay there longer because they're larger molecules that are harder to pass. So this is why colloids are primarily used for plasma expansion. An example of a colloid is albumin. Now let's go into crystalloids. So crystalloids, like I said, smaller molecules, they go out quicker. These are generally all the other fluids that you know of. You're going to have your isotonic, hypotonic, and your hypotonic. Your isotonic, hypotonic, and hypertonic. Here are the differences. Your isotonic, it has the same concentration as the plasma. So the amount of water that's being transported in the cell is the same exact thing as the amount of water transported out of the cell. So there's no net movement. Examples of isotonic are 0.9% normal saline, lactated ringer, and D5W. So D5W, we're going to go back in a minute because that's just a little point about that. Then the next type is hypotonic. So just think of the word tonic as solutes. So hypotonic has very little solute. So it has more water than molecules. Hypotonic, less particles. What's going to happen is that when it goes in, it's going to have a lot of water. It's going to want to give the water to the cell, which is going to make the cell swell. Examples are 0.45 normal saline, 0.225 normal saline, 0.33 normal saline, and D5W. Hypertonic is the opposite. Tonic, particles, hyper, too many. So it has too little water, too much particles. So what do you think is going to happen? The cell is going to give it some water, so it will have more water. But now the cell is going to shrink. Some examples are 5%, 3%, D5NS, D10W, D5LR. The one way I like to remember which solution goes to which one, anything above 1, so 3, 5, 10, all that, is all going to be hyper. Anything 0.45 or below is going to be hypotonic. So 0.45 normal saline, 0.225 normal saline, 0.3, and then your isotonic are just easy to remember. Lactated ringer, 0.9 normal saline. And the one thing I wanted to say about D5W is that D5W could act as hypotonic or isotonic. D5W is just glucose with water. So in the bag, before it goes into the patient, it's isotonic. Has equal concentration, nothing's moving. As soon as it gets in the patient, the glucose is used up like that in a few minutes. So basically, what happens is there's only water left. So it turns into hypotonic because there's no more particles. There's just water left. So in the bag, isotonic. When it's in the patient, it's hypotonic. So just to recap quickly on this whole thing in case it was confusing, is that water likes to be balanced. The cell has more water, it's going to come out of the cell. Outside has more water, it's going to go in the cell. Everything likes to be balanced. For IV fluids, you have your crystalloids, your colloids. Your crystalloids, small particles, so they go out of the blood vessel really quickly into the cell. Your colloids have larger molecules, so they're staying there longer, so they expand the blood volume. The three types that we talked about under crystalloids, so hypotonic, tonic, particles, hypo, too little. Has too little particles and too much water. So it's going to give some water to the cell. The cell is going to swell. Hypertonic, too much tonic, which is particles, so too little water. So it's going to take water from the cell's going to shrink. Easy way to remember what's what is just remember anything like over 1 is going to be hypertonic. So 3%, your 5%, your 10% are all hypertonic. Anything below 0.5 is going to be hypotonic. So your 0.45, your 0.35, your 0.25%. And isotonic, 0.9% normal saline, lactate or ringer. And just remember D5W is going to be hypotonic when it's in the patient, isotonic when it's in the bag. I hope that helps you, and please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and stay tuned for more. Goodbye.